What if the person you feared most in the world was also the only one who had ever truly loved you? The thought tore through Lily Harper's mind as she stumbled across the frozen ridgeline of the Montana Territory, the wind striking her like a whip. The winter storm was sharpening, turning the world into a white blur of ice, rock, and sky. The ground was a patchwork of mud and hardened snow, the kind that swallowed boots and snapped ankles. Her boots were gone. They had been ripped off her feet hours ago when she fled the wagon. No, when she jumped from it, rolling down a steep bank until the world turned into a jumble of bruised limbs and cold panic. The fine gray dress she wore, chosen by her aunt for the wedding supper in Helena, was shredded from the fall. Strips of silk clung to her like torn skin. She had wrapped her feet in pieces of her petticoat, but the cold was gnawing through the fabric and into her bones. And still she ran. Behind her, far off but closing in, were the men her fiancé had sent. William Carter, the respected banker, the gentleman with perfect clothes and a perfect smile, the man whose voice had always been steady, too calm like ice. She had ignored the warnings. She had ignored the way he spoke to her aunt instead of her. She had ignored the way he made every choice for her, as if she were a piece of furniture he intended to place by the window. She had ignored the fear that grew in her chest every time his hand rested on her back. But last night, after she accidentally overheard his conversation with two hired men, after she heard her own name paired with words like obedience and correction, she knew she had to run, even if it meant dying in the cold. Her breath came in ragged gasps. The pines loomed tall around her, their branches heavy with snow. The wind howled through them, a shrieking cry that matched the one rising in her own chest. She could not stop. She would not. Then, through the trees, she saw it. A thin line of smoke rising against the gray sky. Her heart lurched. A cabin. It stood alone in a small clearing, crouched under a low ridge. It looked abandoned at first glance. Weathered logs, a roof sagging under the weight of snow, the door hanging slightly crooked as if punched one too many times. But the smoke was real, alive, a curl of dark ash drifting from the crooked stovepipe. Someone lived there, or had, recently. Lily stumbled toward it, half falling, her hands sinking into the snow as she crawled the last few feet. She pushed the door, expecting it to be locked, but it creaked open under her trembling hand. The cabin was empty, small, rough, floors scattered with old pelts and broken tools. A single bed against the wall with a wool blanket that looked stiff from age, but the fire, yes, the fire in the pot-bellied stove still held embers. Warmth, safety, even if only for a moment. She slipped inside and pushed the door closed with her shoulder. The wind died to a low moan outside. The cabin filled with the soft hum of burning embers. She knelt beside the stove, feeding it two thin pieces of wood she found stacked in the corner. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely fit the wood through the little iron door. When the flame caught, she pressed her palms near it, feeling the heat bite and sting back into her skin. She didn't cry. Not at first. But when the warmth spread through her fingers into her chest, something broke in her. A sob tore loose, sharp, painful, humiliating. She covered her face with her hands and wept on the floor, her body shaking with fear and exhaustion. She didn't know how long she sat there. Minutes or hours. The storm outside roared louder, drowning out everything but her racing heartbeat. Then, footsteps. Heavy ones, staggering, slow. She froze. The door shuddered once, twice, then flew open, slamming against the wall. Snow blasted in. A figure filled the doorway. A man, tall and broad, a silhouette of darkness against the white storm. He stumbled inside and slammed the door shut behind him. He didn't see her. He collapsed against the wood, sliding to the floor with a ragged groan. Blood smeared the door where his palm had braced it. His coat, thick, torn hide, was black with melting ice. His hat was gone. His hair, dark and tangled, clung to his forehead with sweat. He pressed a hand to his side, gasping, and Lily saw the dark bloom spreading beneath his coat. He was hurt. Badly. She inched backward, pressing into the shadowed corner, trying to silence her own breath. Fear crawled cold and sharp up her spine. Then, he lifted his head, and Lily's blood turned to ice. She knew that face. Older, harder, marked by scars she had never seen before. But she knew it. She would know it even blind. "James," she whispered. Her voice cracked like thin ice. The man's eyes snapped open, sharp, dark, burning even through the fever. He turned toward her, slow, deliberate, as if he had known she was there all along. He stared at her, not with surprise, with recognition, with something far deeper, far darker. Her chest tightened. James Rowe. The outlaw. The man who vanished 7 years ago after being accused of shooting her father. The man who had once put a wildflower behind her ear in the summer sun. The man she had cried over for a year until her aunt told her to forget him. The man who had been declared dangerous, unhinged, a threat to everyone around him. The man they claimed had killed her father. Her breath hitched. "You're alive," she whispered. He didn't blink. His gaze swept her torn dress, her bare feet, her trembling hands. He took her in slowly, painfully, as if the sight hurt him. Then, in a voice rough with pain and cold and 7 years of something darker than hate, he rasped, "Get over here!" Lily's heart hammered. "No," she breathed. He pushed himself upright, one hand pressed to his bleeding side. His expression didn't change. He didn't lift his gun. He didn't threaten her. He didn't need to. "Get over here," he repeated, his voice low, dangerous. "You're not going back to him." She flinched. "How did you know?" His eyes burned into hers. "I know everything, Lily." The storm screamed outside, and inside the cabin, trapped with the outlaw who had once held her heart and now held her fate, Lily Harper felt the world tilt into something strange and terrifying. James Rowe wasn't here by accident, and he wasn't letting her go. The wind punched against the log walls, rattling the loose boards, as if trying to tear the cabin apart. The storm outside was a monster, but the storm inside Lily's chest was worse. James Rowe pushed himself upright, his breath ragged, one hand pressed over the bleeding wound at his ribs. He was pale beneath the dirt and cold, but his eyes, those dark, sharp, burning eyes, did not waver. "Come here," he said again. Lily shook her head. Her back hit the far wall. The chain of fear wrapped tight around her ribs. "You're hurt," she whispered. "You need help." He gave a rough, humorless sound. Not a laugh, not even close. "You think I care what I need?" His voice was gravel, low and cracked. "You ran through a storm strong enough to kill a man in an hour." "Why?" She swallowed, her voice barely a breath. "I was running from William." Quote. At the name, something flickered across James's face, not surprise, something colder. "You're engaged to him," he said. The words were not a question. "How do you know that?" Lily whispered. His jaw clenched. His breath hitched with pain, but he leaned his weight against the wall and pushed himself fully to his feet. Even wounded, even half frozen, he was a towering presence. His shoulders took up the doorway. His shadow covered half the cabin. "I've been watching you." Her blood went cold. "You, what?" He stepped closer, slow, deliberate. "I know where he takes you in town. I know how he talks to you. I know every time you leave that house." His eyes darkened. "I know when you cry." Her knees weakened. He had been there. Somewhere in the shadows. Somewhere behind the trees. Watching. For how long? "I heard him," she whispered, breath shaking. "Last night. He said I belonged to him. That he'd make sure I learned obedience." James moved another step toward her, his boots heavy against the wood. "Of course he did," he said, voice low. "Men like him don't love women. They collect them." She pressed harder against the wall. "James, you shouldn't be here." He stared at her, pain sharpening his features, bleeding hand shaking but still firm at his side. "Don't tell me where I should be," he rasped. "You don't get to do that again." "Again?" she whispered. He looked at her as if the past was a ghost standing between them. "You left," he said. "You left me to hang." Lily froze. "I didn't." "You didn't stand up for me," he said, voice quiet but sharp as a blade. "You didn't ask one question. You didn't look at me. You didn't even try to find out the truth." She stared at him, throat thick, heart twisting. "I was 18, she whispered. "My father had just died. I didn't know what to do." "You believed them," James said. "You believed I murdered him." The wind shrieked. The fire cracked low in the stove. Ash drifted through the air like falling gray snow. "I didn't want to," Lily whispered, "but they said—" "They lied," James cut in. "I told you that before they dragged me out of town." She remembered, his voice shouting her name, his face bruised, wild, desperate, her aunt holding her back, the whole town surrounding them, her world collapsing. "You vanished," she said softly. "Everyone thought you escaped to save yourself." His jaw flexed. "I escaped because your father wasn't the only one killed," he said. "I was next. I was set up to die." Her breath hitched. "And now," he continued, stepping close enough for her to feel the heat of his body, "they're trying to take you too." She stared up at him. Did he do something to you?" James's eyes darkened with a fury so deep it made her whole body tense. "He hunted me," he said. "Paid men to track me across 3 states, shot me twice, sent a bounty on my head so big even good men would have killed me for it." Her hand flew to her mouth. "But why?" His voice dropped into something raw, wounded, terrifying. "Because he knew," James whispered. "He knew I was coming back for the truth. And he knew I still cared about you." The room went silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. "I don't understand," Lily whispered. "You don't have to." His breath was warm against her face, his eyes locked on hers. "Just know this, he'll never get you back." Her pulse thudded hard. "James, what do you want from me?" His jaw tightened, and for a moment something like pain flickered through his expression. "You," he whispered. "I want what was taken from me. I want what I lost." He reached for something on the floor, a rusted iron cuff, a hunting shackle, heavy chain attached. Lily's heart stopped. "No," she choked out. "James, please." He held it loosely in his hand, his expression torn between anger and something heartbreakingly sad. "You ran from him," James said quietly. "You're not running from me." He dropped to one knee in front of her, not to plead, to trap. He grabbed her ankle. She gasped, yanking back. But the storm, the cold, the exhaustion had stolen her strength. James snapped the cuff closed around her ankle with one harsh click. Lily's breath hitched in disbelief. The cold metal bit into her skin. She stared at him, at the man she had once loved more than anything, as he looked up at her, wounded, broken, furious, and desperate, all at once. "You're my bride now," he whispered, voice cracking with something deeper than hate, "and this is your punishment." The fire cast shadows across his scarred face. His eyes glistened, not with triumph, but with a grief so violent it nearly broke her. The cabin grew silent. Only his ragged breathing filled the space between them. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. His answer was a single, shattered word. "Justice." The cabin walls trembled under the force of the storm, each blast of wind shaking loose flakes of old bark and dust. Lily sat on the floor beside the potbelly stove, her ankle chained to its heavy leg. The iron cuff bit into her skin each time she shifted, reminding her with every breath that she was trapped. The heat from the fire warmed only one side of her body. The other side shivered from cold and fear. James lay a few feet away, slumped against the rough logs, his hand clamped over his bleeding ribs. The wound was dark and ugly, the blood on his fingers drying into rusty flakes. His breath was shallow. His eyes burned as they tracked her, unblinking, even through the fever rising in him. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Lily whispered, "You're dying." James gave a small, bitter sound. Wouldn't be the first time. A sharp tremor ran through him, and she saw how much effort it took for him to stay upright. She pushed herself closer, dragging the stove an inch across the floor as the chain pulled tight. Pain shot up her ankle. "Stop," he rasped. "You'll hurt yourself." "You're already hurt," she said. "James, your wound." He turned his face away, jaw tight. "Don't waste your pity on me." "It's not pity," she said softly. His eyes flicked back to hers. "What is it then?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for the water bucket beside the stove and splashed a small amount onto a scrap of cloth. With trembling hands, she edged close enough to press it toward him. James stared at the cloth, as if it were a threat. "You don't get to touch me," he said, voice rough. "I'm not trying to hurt you." He didn't move, didn't stop her when she pressed the cool rag to his feverish forehead. His eyes slid shut, and his shoulders sagged in a way that frightened her more than anything. His voice dropped to little more than a hoarse whisper. "Why did you run, Lily?" Her heart thudded painfully. "You heard him, I told you. William wasn't who I thought he was." James's jaw twitched in anger. "You don't know what he is," he said, "what he's capable of." She swallowed. "Then tell me." James opened his eyes slowly. The fire crackled between them, lighting the sharp edges of his face. "You remember the night your father died?" he said. Her stomach tightened. "Yes." "You remember they blamed me?" She nodded. "He was already dead when I found him." His voice cracked. "I tried to help him, Lily. God help me, I tried." She covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. "But someone was watching," James continued. "Someone who needed me gone. Someone who wanted your family's land. Your father died in debt. The bank, William's bank, was waiting to take everything, until they realized something better." "What?" She breathed. His eyes met hers. "They realized they wanted you." The room spun. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "William set you up," James rasped. "Your father was in his way. I was in his way. So he cleared the board." "That's not true," Lily whispered. "It can't." "He paid men to kill your father," James said, voice shaking with fury. "He pinned it on me. He planned to marry you after the dust settled. You were his trophy, his way into your father's remaining land rights." Her body trembled. "How do you know all of this?" Quote. James lifted his hand slowly, pointing toward his jacket lying on the floor. Inside, a ledger, letters. "I stole them from one of his men a few weeks ago. I was going to bring them to you." Her breath tore out of her. Before she could answer, James's body jerked with pain. His hand slipped from his wound. Blood welled through his shirt. "James," she gasped, dragging herself forward as the chain rattled violently. "You're fading." Quote. He toppled sideways. She caught him, her hands pressed to his burning skin. She placed the rag on his wound, but the heat streaming from him was terrifying. "James," she whispered, voice cracking. "Don't do this. Don't leave me. Not like this. Not again." His eyes fluttered. "You should hate me," he murmured. "For chaining you." Her tears fell onto his cheeks. "I don't." "You should," he whispered. "I ran because I was scared," she said through shaking breaths. "I didn't believe you. I didn't believe myself. But I don't want to lose you again." His hand lifted clumsily, fingers brushing her jaw. "You still care?" His voice wavered. "After everything?" "I never stopped." He stared at her, his expression breaking open, raw and wounded. The storm outside finally began to quiet. The shrieking wind softening into a low moan, as if the world was holding its breath. "You shouldn't choose me," James whispered. "Not now." "I'm not choosing William," she said. He huffed a weak laugh that turned into a painful cough. "Good," he rasped, "because he's coming." Quote. The bottom dropped out of her stomach. "What?" James swallowed hard, forcing himself upright against the wall, his breathing hitched with agony. "He always tracks what he thinks he owns," he said. "He wants you back. He wants the ledger back, and he'll kill me to get both." Lily stared at him in horror. "James, what do we do?" He leaned his head back, eyes burning, jaw set in a grim line. "You stay behind me," he said, "no matter what." "I can't fight," she cried. "Yes, you can. he said. "You're stronger than you think." Her heart pounded. "James, what if we don't make it?" Quote. He turned toward her fully then, his hand shaking as he cupped her cheek. "If we die," he whispered, voice breaking, "we die together." Her breath stopped, not in fear, in understanding, in something deeper, stronger. But before she could speak, before she could tell him what she felt, the sudden thud of hooves echoed outside. The storm had gone silent, and danger had arrived with it. James grabbed the gun from his coat. Lily reached for his arm. His voice was low, fierce, trembling with love and fury and something desperate. "Remember what I said?" She nodded. Together they braced for the door to burst open, for the final fight, for the truth that would either save them or bury them forever.